The male lead is the male lead, and he goes to the guards, tell them to get all the nasty, filthy things, specifically the chamber pots, and put them in the main character's prison cell. Obviously, the main character does not take this very well because, again, this is all nasty, filthy things, and this man hates anything gross. I would have ran away if a bunch of dirty, filthy chamber pots were put in my prison cell. He escapes. He ends up running into a monk. He takes the monk's place, enters the monk's temple, and stays there so he can get clean and nice. It's also the temple that the emperor is going to go to worship for 3 days. After talking with the male character, the male lead goes to the emperor, gets some soldiers from the emperor, goes to the hostage, threatens the hostage with the soldiers under the excuse that the soldiers are there to protect him. The male lead and the hostage basically have a little face-off. An eclipse happens, and this eclipse, because of the time period, is foreboding and a bad omen. It puts unease in the soldiers that the male lead brought with him, but the male lead's speech brings the soldiers' spirits back up. They have their little face-off, and the hostage is kind of pleased the way the main lead had handled everything, and this is when the male lead leaves. The third person that the male character was supposed to keep an eye on and keep safe is dead. He is full-on dead. The master historian, who was supposed to be the one who is supposed to keep an eye on the stars and the sky and make sure if there's any signs of eclipse so they don't have the emperor going and worshiping at the same time as an eclipse, because that's a bad sign. That is a bad omen. It's a bad time to do something like that. The master historian is dead, but he already knew about it, told his people to keep their mouths shut because he will go to the emperor and tell it to the emperor so they can keep it secret, keep it quiet, that they can move events around. Nah, he didn't do that. And then he was killed to keep his mouth shut. The second granddaughter of the emperor finally tells her mother, the eldest princess, the truth of what's going on. She, a few years ago, had come to her mother back from the dead, told her mother how she was raised and how she was happy to finally be with her mother and sister, and her mother and sister took her in. She had pleaded and begged to her mother and sister not to tell her grandparents that she was alive, because they'd be wary, concerned, suspicious. So mother and daughter agreed. They agreed to help her play the whole switcheroo game between her and her sister. But when things starts getting into a hijinks, the mom starts getting a little wary and anxious. She also realized her daughter has been whispering things into her ear this entire time, turning her against her parents. This is why there was a rift and dislike between her and her parents, and she realizing that her daughter was using her own hatred about losing her position against her parents. She even tries pleading to her daughter to stop this, that this wasn't going to go well, and her daughter won't listen to her, telling her basically that her third uncle, the third prince, is involved in this and he will become emperor, and that she will marry the man who raised her, which was the leader of the 13 floors. Yeah, he raised her and then was gonna marry her. Like, you know how much I was trying not to barf? This man full-on groomed her. Groomed this girl. It's probably why she is basically insane. It's because he groomed her and put all these thoughts and ideas in her head and used her like a puppet. Like, I was utterly disgusted when I got to this point. Once she leaves, she had put her mother to sleep, but once the mother awoke, she rushed to her mother, the empress, to inform the empress the truth of what was going on. With the eldest princess telling the empress that she's been poisoned by her second granddaughter, the empress was able to stop herself from succumbing to the poison and completely dying from it. So she's safe and sound now. And she was able to find a cure and would be able to rush to her husband's safety. The emperor arrives to the temple, the same temple the main character is disguised in, and he is trying to do his worship things, but things don't go well for him. He's seeing illusions, he's freaking out. He's already dealing with the 3 men who had basically put him on the throne and been vouching for him are now dead. The master historian's dead. And he's seeing things inside the temple. The master of the temple, who is good friends with him, is trying to calm his nerves, keep him in ease. But then when he goes to talk with the man once more, the man is gruesomely dead. Like, he is horribly ruined. Like, he has one of those worms in him, and that worm was destroying him from the inside out. And this is when the Emperor comes face to face with the leader of the 13 floors and his second granddaughter. Like, they took off with him and put him in a hidden location. But while they're trying to switch him out with an imposter, the martial artist that works for the hostage shows up, and he was going to kill the real emperor. And so the leader of the 13 floors, who still wants the real emperor alive so he can use the real emperor sooner or later, because sooner or later you're probably going to need the real emperor. Even if you have a fake, you probably still need to keep the real one alive. Fights him to keep the emperor alive. This is when the main character reveals, oh, I'm here this entire time. I was under a fake identity, and fights to the men. He throws the emperor into a safe location where he knows the Malade is probably in, which is a secret tunnel that's full of errors that the hostage created. There are not just errors in this tunnel, there's a literal monster, a goo worm monster inside that tunnel, and the main lead and one of his members of his burrow finds the emperor, tries to get the emperor out of there, but they end up split up from the male lead because the male lead was captured by the leader of the 13 floors because he ended up escaping his fight between the main character and the martial artist that works for the hostage. He lost the fight between those two, and he abandoned the second granddaughter of the emperor while he took off with the imposter of the emperor. Yes, it was a whole confusing Tom and Jerry thing, but yes, he's now has hold of the male lead while the emperor and the member of the burrow, the male lead's burrow, are trying to escape from the worm monster. Yes, this whole thing is happening all at once. The male lead and the leader of the 13 floors decide to work with each other, finally, to escape the tunnels full of errors and traps created by the hostage. The leader of the 13 floors had not expected the hostage to betray him this soon. He had hoped that it would be way afterwards that they would fight each other, not right then and there. Well, his imposter of the emperor ends up dying by one of these traps, so it's just him and the male lead working with each other, trying to get out of this tunnel and full of errors. And just like the male lead, he was born with a poison, not a sickness, a poison that should have killed him way young. Him and the male lead story are mostly exactly the same, except they both took a different path in their life. They're kind of the same person on two different sides of the coin. So they're trying to literally escape this, but they're badly injured and the poison is taking effect because they've been poisoned again. And he decides, you know what? Let's have a gamble. Male lead, let's gamble on our lives. You can drink this and survive because it's another poison, or you will die in this tunnel with me. And at first, the male lead wasn't going to take this gamble, but at the end, he ends up succumbing to the man's whims and takes the poison, and they're both dying. The dude sooner or later dies. Yeah, the leader of the 13 floors dies. And from what I read from 1,000 Autumns, I thought this man was gonna live till the very end and that he would strive to work with the third prince. Because I guess it was the third prince that the bonus stories and 1,000 Autumns was about, or I could have been wrong. Like, I'm a little confused because, again, the dude who was working with the crown prince in All White and that was the lover of that princess who married into the Gurt Turks, like, I was confused. I'm really confused by the ending of the bonus chapters of 1,000 Autumns, so it confuses me about Peerless. But yeah, he dies. He full on dies.